All right, to the people who are on Zoom, are you able to hear this? Missouri Congressman Eric Burleson has served in the U.S. House for less than 2 years. But
Yes.
all right. I think I have solved that problem. It required me like literally checking a box. So I apologize to the people on Zoom.
Oh, yeah, you did say that.
I did. So, okay. So what I'm going to say, it's now 7:07. So what I'm going to do now is show everybody how to transition from a recorded introduction to music and to a podcast. This is not going to be exactly perfect in terms of like the actual podcast, because I had to like essentially deconstruct a podcast that I had already mixed down. But the basic what you're about to see is basically how you do it. So what you do is you go to new and you go to multi-track session. And then you go to, I'm just going to call this demo for class. It does not really matter what you call this. You just have to call it something, basically. So the first thing you're going to do is put your introduction here. Missouri Congressman Eric Burleson has served in the U.S. House for less than 2 years. Isn't actually going on here. Republicans' tenure in federal politics. So I don't know why it's not going on the projector. It's like you solve one problem and then another problem emerges. But so you put that right here. This is the music right here. You put the music underneath here. And then what you're going to do is you see this line right here that controls the volume. You click on it, you left click it, and that creates this little blue dot right here, which is going to allow you to click the end of this, also a left click, and then pull it down. So that means it's transitioning up to where it would sound like this. When his job back later this year. Let's hit the music. This is the Politically Speaking podcast. So you hear how like it's kind of a gradual sound that's going up. It kind of dovetails with this slope that is pretty steep typically. You want it to be steep and not like this. Otherwise, it's going to be like, let's hit the music. The fade in is going to be just way too soft, like for no real reason. So really, it should be kind of up to here, and it should typically be going up to 0.00 dBs. Now, what you do is once you get to the end of your music, it's the same type of idea. Left click, create a blue dot, and then go down. So it's sloping down kind of steeply. And then what you do then is you will have recorded your actual podcast conversation, probably in a separate file. You pull the file maybe like in the middle of this, not necessarily like at the end right here, but maybe in the middle. And that way the listener will be able to actually still hear the music going underneath you until it actually just disappears. So like, this is what it would sound like. And welcome to Politically Speaking. I'm your host, St. Louis Public Radio. So it's subtle. And you can play around with this a little bit. Like this is a situation where, especially if you have a music that is already kind of fading out, like the one I just had, it can be a little less steep. But that's kind of like your own discretion. Like the reason why you want to make sure that you have the volume either going up like that or down like that, because if you don't do that, it just sounds very sudden to the listener that they're suddenly going to hear sometimes some very loud music that's juxtaposed against like a fairly normal sounding recorded intro. So this is basically a way to make your podcast have music in it without like causing a sensory shock to the person you're presenting it to. So does this make sense to everybody? Does anybody have any questions? It's very easy. Like once you do this once, you will be able to do it 1,000 times for the rest of your life. And this is going to be one of the things that I'm going to want to see in your midterms. As I said before, you're not doing 2 podcasts, but I do want you all to record your own recorded introduction. Do I really have a preference if like one person does this versus both of you? Not really, but I do want to make sure, like make sure that when you put music in there, that by the way is not copyrighted music. We kind of went over that ad nauseum last week. That it does not come off very suddenly, and it's very obvious that you use the sliding volume to transition it out. So, anybody have any questions? Okay. It's very self-explanatory. Next week, this is going to become kind of a common thing of this class from now on. This week, you learn how to do music. Next week, we're going to learn how to actually cut things out of actual podcasts. So, for example, if you need to repeat a question and don't want to keep that in there, I will show you how to actually take that out and make it seem like it never happened. It is a little bit trickier than this. But I think you will find it very, very useful, especially if you trip over a question and need to restate it and you don't want to keep it in. So I think one of the other things I'm going to just try to do as a course of practice is, in addition to posting this entire Zoom video, which is very long, I'm going to try to cut out these lessons into separate videos, which you can then rewatch without having to scroll to, I don't know, minute 70 in this. So that is my goal. If I don't adhere to it 100%, I will let you all know why I didn't do it. But I feel like that's the type of thing that would be useful refreshers for you all going forward. So let's get back to the presentation before we split into groups and talk more about interviewing.